Hi, I'm Lisa from Australian travel and migration blog dreamingofdownunder.com, and today I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of house sitting. I started house sitting when I was travelling Australia for free accommodation, and then when I moved to Sydney it was so in demand that I started my own business and I now get paid for it. I've done over 100 house sits in the last 3 or 4 years. Some have been really good, some have been really bad. So here are the advantages and the disadvantages. The first advantage of house sitting is getting free travel accommodation. So in Australia, a hotel room costs at least $100 a night usually. If you're in hostels, it will be cheaper, but you'll be sharing a dorm room and a busy kitchen. Having a whole house to yourself just for looking after someone's pets is a really good deal. You can cook all your own meals, use the washing machine for free, have your own lounge and TV area, you might even have a swimming pool. A second advantage is to pursue your dreams. So as well as for travel accommodation, you can also house sit in your local area and live rent free. So if you want to take time out from work to start a business, or if you want to save it for a house deposit, house sitting can help you do that because you're saving so much money. The third advantage of house sitting is living in luxury. Not all house sits are amazing, but I've had swimming pools, jacuzzis, steam rooms, sea views, enormous ensuite bathrooms, and even lifts inside the house. Got to be better than hostels. The fourth advantage is if you've been travelling or camping for a long time, you've got the chance to clean all your things. You can wash the car, you can clean your camping equipment, you can do all your laundry, and you might even be able to have a bath. My next advantage is if you're house sitting locally, you don't have to deal with any house maintenance, any decorating or any gardening. The most you'll have to do in a house sit is water a few plants and bring the mail in. The sixth advantage of house sitting is having animal company. So in Australia, house sitting is always to look after people's pets while they're on holiday, so you get to do all the fun stuff with the animals, like walking them and playing with them, but without having any of the expensive vet bills or insurance costs. My seventh advantage of house sitting is getting to explore local areas. So if you're travelling, staying in a local's home means you'll get to see much more than the tourist areas, and the owners might give you some recommendations of what to see while you're there. If you're moving to a new city like I did when I moved to Sydney, it means you can experience life firsthand in lots of different suburbs and decide where you want to live long term. But I now live in an amazing beach area in Sydney that I don't think I would have found without house sitting. My eighth advantage of house sitting is that once you've got some experience, you can start a pet care business in your local area. As well as house sitting, you can host people's pets in your own home while they're on holiday. You can feed people's cats when they're on holiday, you can do dog walking, or you could run doggy daycare and have people drop their dogs off at your home while they're at work. This is quite an easy way to build a second income, particularly if you work from home. Moving on to the disadvantages of house sitting, my first disadvantage is having to move house frequently. So if you want to stay somewhere that's really in demand, you might have to accept shorter house sits because the long ones get snapped up quickly. This is why I switched to paid house sitting, because the amount of time that I was spending moving house, packing, cleaning, loading and unloading the car and driving to different house sits really outweighed the rent savings. My second disadvantage of house sitting is people dropping out last minute. If you're house sitting for free accommodation only and you're not being paid, you're working on a trust basis usually. So sometimes people would book me when they weren't really serious about going away. Sometimes people would drop out the week before or even the day before. And occasionally people would come home early from their house sits because they either had to work or they decided that they didn't really like being on holiday. This did improve when I switched to paid house sitting through MadPaws because the owners have to pay up front and the website keep hold of the money, so people are much less likely to book you if they're not serious about going away. My third disadvantage is badly behaved pets. I've had dogs pulling all my food off of the kitchen worktop and eating it all. I've had dogs chewing my shoes and belongings. I've had animals going to the toilet in the house. I've had dogs look me in the eye and wee on the floor. I had a dog wee on my bed once, which I didn't find until I got into it. I had one cat that just hated me and attacked my legs every time I walked past. I've had quite a few other cats bite me, and sometimes you've got dogs that don't like other dogs, which is quite difficult to walk and quite embarrassing when they're just growling and snarling at every dog that walks past. My next disadvantage is badly behaved pet owners. Just a few examples. I once had a lady not answer the door when I travelled to her home to do the meet and greet because she got drunk and passed out. I've had people leave their dirty underwear on the bathroom floor, guss it up. I've had fridges full of mouldy vegetables where I've had to clean them out and disinfect them. I've had dirty pantries with maggots in. I've had a few people not bothering to change their bed sheets. I've had people not bothering to look at their flight times when I've asked them to, and then realising they're back at midnight when I need to leave that morning to go to another house sit, and then begging me to stay. I've had the kitchen bins left overflowing when I get there. People getting their holiday dates wrong. People cancelling or moving their holiday dates and forgetting to tell me. I could go on for hours. So disadvantage number 5 is the restrictions on your time. So you're always allowed to come and go from the house in a house sit. It's not full time, you're never locked in the house. but you do need to stay in the house every night. You need to be at home to feed the pets at the right times and to walk them. You also might have restrictions on your time if you've got dogs, because a lot of people don't leave them alone all day. So if you're house sitting all the time, you can't just go off for a weekend away or go out for a full day trip with your friends. Disadvantage number 6 is the isolation. So if you're house sitting on your own, it can be very hard to meet people because you are just in local areas for a short amount of time. So if you're backpacking and wanted to meet lots of people, house sitting can be nice for a break, but not to do all the time because you will be by yourself. My 7th disadvantage is living out of a suitcase. If you're house sitting locally rather than travelling, you're giving up your home to live out of a suitcase. You'll need to have everything you need in your car, so your valuables, your clothes, really restricted amount of toiletries and food. You're going to have very creased up clothes all the time and a really small choice of clothes. So I got really sick of this eventually, and I now have my own place and just do paid house sits occasionally. Disadvantage number 8 is that there's no clear boundaries on how much work you should do and how much you're being paid. So it's very different from, say, dog walking, where you're doing a set job for a set amount of time and you're being paid a specific amount. So everybody that's travelling for free rent or free travel accommodation will be saving a different amount. The amount of time that you spend moving house is going to be different depending how long you've stayed somewhere and how much luggage you've got, so that's going to vary. There are also parts of house sitting that you can't really put an exact value on, like if your sleep's going to be disturbed because the animals are noisy, or if you could only leave the house for a few hours at a time, so it's very difficult to put a price on. So this all means that it's quite difficult for a house owner to have a concept of what a fair value of work is, so it's really important that you set boundaries and know what you are and aren't willing to do. I've got a really long blog post on how much to charge for house sitting, so even if you're doing it just for free accommodation, it's really useful to go through and look at the value of the services you're giving and the typical wages of cleaners and dog walkers in Australia, just so you know what you are giving the house owner. Also how much money you're saving the house owner, because kennels and catteries are really expensive, usually much more than a house sitter. On one of the earliest house sits I did, when I had no concept of how high the wages are in Australia, I worked out that I saved $750 in rent, and I did about $4,000 worth of unpaid work, because it was hours of dog walking, watering the garden, hosing down weed killer off the tiles. I did 2 meet and greets that took ages because they wanted to go through everything with me. They also wanted to babysit their grandchild 2 days a week for free, which I said no to. You really, really need to be careful and have an idea of what's fair and what isn't fair. So now that I don't get free accommodation, I just charge for house sitting, but I know exactly how many hours it takes me to move house because I've timed myself. I also know the going rate for things like dog walking, so I include 1 hour of dog walking a day maximum, and if people want more than that, then they have to pay for that on top. The 9th disadvantage is sleep deprivation. So animals can be quite noisy. Lots of people sleep with their animals either in their room or in their bed. If you try and shut an animal out of the room and they're used to sleeping there, they will just bark all night, or cats will just scratch the door and throw themselves at it. So if you're a light sleeper like I am, it's really worth asking the owners about the sleeping arrangement and whether the pets are noisy. I stayed in one house where every time the blanket comes off the dog whines, and the lady got up and put the blanket back on the dog, and this is what they did every night, every couple of hours. Another one where the dog got very thirsty because he was diabetic, and rather than make the dog sleep in a bed on the floor where he could reach his own water, the owner let him wake her up all through the night so that she could hand feed him a bowl of water. So this kind of thing owners don't normally mention. They'll put it on your instruction notes, which you'll see after they've left for the house and you've already started it. So you need to be really careful about asking what's involved with the sleeping arrangements. That's it for my pros and cons of house sitting. Let me know in the comments if you can think of any more things that I've missed. I've got lots of house sitting guides and information on my blog, so check it out if you want to learn more. I'll link to my favourite house sitting websites below. Please like and subscribe for more videos on house sitting or life and travel in Australia. Thanks for watching.